Comparison equals inadequacy, no matter what. And when you start down the path of intentional living to avoid burnout, it can be really tough to shed the things that have felt normal for so long. Some of those things like the hustle to keep up with what the neighbors down the street are doing. It often makes you want to push harder when in all actuality, slowing down might be what's best. Welcome to Health, Harmony, and Happiness with Kathy. I'm your host, Kathy Stricker. I'm a state patrol wife, mama to 3 lively kiddos, a yoga teacher, certified NLP coach, and an energetic rhythms expert. As an energetic rhythms coach, I help action-taking women use their body's rhythms and the moon's cycle to optimize productivity and avoid burnout without letting their desire to remain in control alter their focus. And this podcast is all about doing just that and perhaps a bit more so that you can create your own path to health, harmony, and happiness. So come along with me and may this episode serve as a nudge to discover tools that could help you on your path towards more intentional living. Enjoy the show. So I want to tell you guys about this little story that I had last week. But first I'm going to tell you that when you start down the path of living more intentionally, specifically to avoid burnout, it can be really tough to shed some of the things that seem normal to us, right? Some of the things like hustling, like trying to keep up with the Joneses, because believe it or not, like those are the things that our culture and that our society just communicates to us that we need to be going all the time. We need to be taking action all the time. And we need to be comparing ourselves to the people next door or to the people that are in the same circles as ourselves. So when you start to live intentionally, it can be super hard because you also make the conscious commitment and the conscious choice to kind of let some of that go. You have to, otherwise you're not ever going to slow down. Burnout is going to be inevitable. So like you put this conscious intention out there to slow down, to begin to live differently. And what I teach you is to learn to live cyclically. So there's times for everything. There's a season for everything, right? I'll go into that in detail at another time, but I just want you to know that this path is not what is normal in our society. And you probably already know that. And because it's not the normal, then you're going to inevitably have moments where you feel inadequate about things, where you feel like you are not doing enough, you are not being enough, you're not showing up as you should be. Should is one of my least favorite words. If you've ever heard me say you shouldn't should on yourself, if you haven't, you've heard me say it now. I say it all the time. Should automatically implies that you've done something wrong. So eliminate that. But again, I'm getting off topic. The point is, you're inevitably going to feel inadequate at times because it's just not the normal. It's just not what people are used to doing. But when you choose and when you make that intention to say you're going to live cyclically, to say you're going to honor the rhythms of your body and the rhythms of the universe to live, some of that, just giving yourself permission to do that, lets some of that pressure off, where you maybe don't have the urge to try to keep up with the Joneses as much. But you also still will go through those times of feeling inadequate. Case in point, I'm going to share my story because last week I messaged one of my friends and said, I'm really feeling inadequate today. Or it was towards the end of the workday, and I think I had been working on stuff. I hadn't really completed much of anything, and I just messaged her and said, I'm really feeling inadequate today, and I need someone to remind me that I'm not. And one of her first messages back to me was, where are you in your cycle? And I immediately was like, but by the way, she's also a client. So I've taught her some of this stuff. So I said, oh, yep, I know, you're right. I know. Like, I'm in the luteal phase of my cycle. I know. And so she said, and how do I know that? And I said, you're right. I get it. Point made, right? She knows that because I taught her that. I taught her that in the various phases of your cycle, you're going to experience and feel different things, different traits, different characteristics. Likely you're going, and they kind of are predictable once you start to track it. So her bringing that to my attention also just reminded me to step back. And I was doing that myself. Like, I was all that afternoon, I was like, I know where I am in my cycle. Like, this is just part of it. This is part of it. But it got to the point where I needed to reach out. I needed to ask for some support, and I needed some reassurance from someone that it's okay to feel like that, and that that I'm not really inadequate. But what was happening is that I was getting stuck in what is the normal way of living, which is keeping up with the Joneses, which is the comparison, instead of actually listening to the right, I'm going to say the right way, a better way, rather, which is to listen to your inner guidance, to listen to that voice of truth within you instead of choosing to compare. Because what comparison does is it just breeds more anxiety. It just breeds more of that feeling of inadequacy. And that in turn pushes you to continue to push yourself harder and push until you near burnout even more. So it's not exactly what is, comparison is not exactly the way to avoid burnout, right? But it is completely normal to have those sensations or have those times when you are feeling adequate. And I guess that's kind of my point today, is that I want you to know that when those things come up, when you're just making the conscious choice to change the way you're living, to align with something that's in your better interest, that's maybe for your highest good, that's not the norm of society, you're going to have those moments of inadequacy or of feeling inadequate. And in this case, it's because maybe you're choosing to not be taking action all the time. When you take action all the time, you will inevitably burn out, but you don't have to. When you're unlearning that action taking all the time, it's hard because you get into that. You start to feel those feelings of inadequacy sometimes when you start comparing, and then you have to get back to the inner guidance. And it's kind of a vicious circle. But for the most part, the good news is you can live in this space of being led by your inner guidance, and those feelings don't happen very often. But they might just show up to say hello. So I'm still learning this way of living as well. I've been doing it for a couple years now. Probably, if I were to say when I consciously decided, you know what, no, I am living cyclically, it's probably been 2 years. But the whole menstrual cycle and using that to guide myself and to guide some of my other rhythms and choices, it's been since I had my first child. So that's been 8 years ago, over 8 years ago, because it was before I got pregnant with him. So it's been a long time coming, and I still get these feelings of like, oh, I'm just not enough. But rest assured, because you are enough. You absolutely are. And those feelings are just kind of part of it every once in a while. Here's the other thing. I know that I mentioned about the luteal phase, and that's the phase that happens right before your period. So those details on what that means, and there are certain characteristics and traits that happen and that occur, and you, as I'm saying this, you probably can think of some for yourself that come up during that time frame, right? Just give me a yes if you know and if you can. But there's other characteristics in some of those PMS symptoms. There's other characteristics than that that also appear and that allow you to give yourself the space so that those feelings of inadequacy don't have to show up every month. They absolutely don't. It's one of those things. It's about listening to your inner guidance and then owning your thoughts and actions as well. So that's all I've got for today. I hope this was useful for you. I hope that my experience, sharing my experience, was was helpful and inspiring and just giving you a little bit of peace of mind that you don't have to be perfect all the time. And you don't have to take action all the time. You get to sometimes have those feelings of inadequacy, but that simply means that you are doing something different. And the doing something different is what is important. Because if we're all doing the same thing, maybe it's not the best way of living. But doing something different and actually tuning into your highest good instead of pushing through all the time is what's going to help you avoid that burnout. Because most everybody in this world feels on the verge of burnout or close to extreme exhaustion. I'm not going to say most everybody, but a lot of people, a large majority of people in this world. So you might have those little glimmers of inadequacy. Totally okay. I had it. I reached out to my friend. She shared with me a bit. I even journaled on it, because when I have those feelings, when I have something that I know is not actually my truth, the best thing that I can do is either reach out to someone who knows me well, or journal about it, or just think on it and sit with it and just allow it to be and allow it the space to breathe and name it, and it dissipates. And wouldn't you know, like the next day, didn't feel like that at all. I just needed that little bit of confirmation. So anyway, ladies, I hope you have a lovely day and hope this was helpful. And I'll see you another time. Bye. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you hear, help us grow this podcast by sharing it with even just one other person. And it would mean so much to me if you would take a moment of your time to write a review. Your comments and feedback are what help me continue to bring you topics and guests that can help you and others on their journey in creating health, harmony, and happiness. Remember to head on over to CairnYogaWellness.com to get the show notes and links from today's episode. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Cairn Yoga Wellness, and to continue connecting with more resources that could help you enhance health, harmony, and happiness in your own life, subscribe to this podcast. Thanks again for listening.